Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight on this Friday, September 11th, 2015. As we look back on September 11th on this 14th anniversary, it's important to remember that Alex Jones warned us about this before it happened. Here's the tape.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad that you could join us today for this Wednesday, July 25th, 2001 broadcast. Tyranny is enveloping the globe, and the United States is a shining jewel the globalists want to bring down, and they will use terrorism as the pretext to get it done. So that's coming up in the second half of the show. Very important information. I'm going to put the call out that you call the White House and tell them, look, we've seen the news stories that you've wanted to blow things up, that you have blown things up, and that you're saying that 4 million of us are going to die and we need martial law and the Associated Press. At one of your little drills you had, and that we're aware of who the terrorists are if you pull this. This can stop this Hitlerian Reichstag event. I want to put the toll-free number up for Congress. And I won't want you to believe Alex Jones. I want you to go get these news stories off my website. I want you to call these major newspapers. I want you to find out these statements were true by the White House about preparing for martial law. And I want you to let them know that if there is any terrorism, we know who to blame. The point is, if any terrorism comes, it's from this government. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, running the Mujahideen war, and whose family builds all the military bases over in Saudi Arabia right now, and sits on the board of Iridium Satellite, he's the boogeyman they need in this Orwellian phony system. I want the White House numbers up there now. A big part of this solution, after you research all the government terrorism and check out what I'm saying is true, call the White House and tell them, we know the government's planning terrorism. We know Oklahoma City and World Trade Center was terrorism. We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners, Baltimore Sun. If you do it, we're going to blame you because we know who's up to it. Or if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. And you could save the planet. I'm calling it Operation Expose the Government Terror.
The real story is actually better than the one we told. Yes, we were lied to. We're still being lied to. They're still covering up the truth. They're still not releasing all the information. And we know that the official conspiracy theory is impossible in many different aspects of it. We may never know exactly what happens, but we do know at this point that they lied. Why did they lie? They lied so they could establish the post-9/11 world that we all live in. That's what we need to think about at this moment. We need to think about the fact we understand that they lied about this. We need to understand that they stood down various services. Even as we talked to Thomas Drake, he said the NSA was obviously telling people before 9/11, don't worry about terrorist events. That's not really our priority. They were moving people away from this, but then they jumped on it with both feet once it happened to justify their expansion. What do we live in the post-9/11 world? Of course, we've got the Patriot Act. We have dragnet surveillance of the entire population, something that, of course, had been done long before. We had the church and the Pike Committee hearings back in the 1970s pointing out that the CIA and the NSA were spying on American citizens illegally at the time, but they were ashamed of that. It caused restructuring. Now they do it openly, even after the Snowden revelations. No one goes to jail. Nothing changes. The acquiescence of the American people to this surveillance state is very troubling. It should be very troubling to all of us. We have national security that's become the go-to to do anything that they want to violate the law, to violate the Constitution. It justifies every kind of violation. We have, of course, TSA and naked body scanners, that kind of security theater that doesn't make any of us safer. They do that while they leave the borders open. We have the militarization of the police. We have indefinite detention without trial. Remember how they justified that. They said we have a authorization for the use of military force for terrorists. That was the original title of the article. And then under that rubric, they have war after war, continuous war that never stops, as well as justifying martial law in the United States. That's essentially what they're acting as if we're under. And of course, we had the lies about the war in Iraq. No one believes, they've admitted that that's a lie now. But they used the fear of the American people that they put in with 9/11 to get them to support the lies of the war against Iraq. We have Afghanistan. And now we've seen, of course, the most recent example is ISIS, another creation of our foreign policy, another creation of the globalists that are setting everyone against everyone else. Drone assassinations, that's something that is new as part of this post-9/11 world. Now, today, we are seeing, after this false story of being invaded by Muslim terrorists, we see now, however, that there are real barbarians at the gate. Barbarians who will destroy Western civilization, because Western civilization is the only thing in the way of the globalist plans. And I don't mean that as an insult to the people who are fleeing the conflict that we created in Syria. These people are pawns in this globalist chess game, just as we are. But we need to understand what's behind this. Look at these headlines today from Infowars.com. White House claims 10,000 refugees from Syria will be vetted, yet the FBI says, no, they won't. And we've already seen this happen. We saw this happen when they created ISIS, when John McCain goes to Syria and he meets with al-Nusra and he meets with the people who later became the leaders of ISIS. We were told that they were moderate rebels at the time. This is a bipartisan effort. It doesn't matter whether it was John McCain or Obama, we would have still gotten the same situation. Look at this other headline here from Infowars.com today. 3,000 quote unquote moderate rebels defect to ISIS. The U.S. is preparing 5,000 more. They say this is a harbinger of what's to become U.S. rebel army. It plans to stand up in the spring. We are equipping these people. We are creating these people. We are training these people. And now people are concerned, and rightfully so. We know this is going to happen. They are coming in with the genuine refugees. How are you going to distinguish one between the other? We see from reports that in this InfoWars story report that murder arrests are up 55%, rape arrests are up 370% in Sanctuary City, San Francisco. This is what Donald Trump was telling us. And of course, this is precisely what we have seen. We know that when you open the borders, when you let people in without any control or inspection whatsoever, you're going to have a mass exodus of criminals who are going to come in because they want to get to the wealthiest areas. Criminals are going to come to the wealthy countries because that's where the money is. And the Hispanic people don't want to see this happen. Here's this article from Breitbart. 2 out of 3 Hispanics oppose an immigration increase, but only 34% of U.S.-born Hispanics, 33% of foreign-born Hispanics. These are people who have come in here. They weren't born here. They recent immigrants say, we don't want open borders. They're fleeing a country that is in turmoil, in violence, in bloodshed. But we can see that this is what is happening in America. We know this is what's going to happen with Islamic terrorists, with ISIS terrorists in Europe. We see this article, Greek Coast Guard intercepts aid container full of weapons, firearms likely intended for Muslim refugees. This is from IntelliHub. This is what is going to happen. And some people are standing up against this. A few of the newer European countries, countries like Hungary and others, are standing up and saying, we are not going to have this foisted upon us by the European Union, because it is the upper level of the elite globalists, those who are trying to erase all borders, who are pushing this. This is not an issue of humanitarianism. That's where Donald Trump is wrong. This is something he will not address, even as a blowback issue, what is ultimately behind this. I don't believe that this is simply the result of bad foreign policy. It certainly is not the result of Obama not being aggressive enough and starting the Syrian war soon enough. We know this is something that was on their agenda for a very long time. Wesley Clark talked about the countries that they were going to go into one after the other. Syria was the next on the list, but we understand, because we have seen the documents. We know, we've been talking about this for a very long time, about the plan for world government. We've seen them openly talking about how the economic crisis in the euro can only be solved by the surrender of sovereignty to the center. We see the trade agreements that now nobody is talking about at the moment, but they're going to be coming. Those trade agreements are going to consolidate the regional consolidations. They are the next stepping stone to consolidating us to a global consolidation.